Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to this new episode of the podcast Hāfu Voices. Today I am very delighted to welcome Megumi Nishikura. So hello, Megumi.
Hi, everybody. Hello.
Hello.
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. Thank you so much for being here. So before we get into our conversation, I would like to quickly introduce Megumi. So, Megumi Nishikura is an award winning filmmaker, journalist, and producer, best known as the co director and co producer of the documentary Hafu, the mixed race experience in Japan. And that's actually how I discovered Megumi through these documentaries that I watch, and I really, really, really appreciate it. Through her work, Megumi has given voice to the different stories of mixed heritage individuals in Japan and has helped spark important conversation about identity, belonging, and multiculturalism. And I'm very excited to explore her own journey, the inspiration behind this documentary, and perhaps also to discover what you have learned, Megumi, from documenting the experiences of people living between cultures. You also, and so you've been doing this work for a while, for 10 years, and maybe even more, I don't know, you will tell us. And you have also done a TED Talk, TEDx. I watched your TEDx in Kyoto, which I really liked also, which was exploration into being Hafu. So where you talk about your experience having both identities in Japan. So welcome again, Megumi.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
My pleasure. I'm very happy to be with you, and thank you for being here for in the night. I mean, it's evening for you in LA. So, first of all, would you like to perhaps introduce yourself with your own words and what half are you? And yes, where do you live? I told already, but where do you live exactly in the US? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I am half Japanese and half Irish American. I was born in Tokyo in the 1980s, and grew up in Asia, until I was about 15. So we lived primarily in Japan, but I also lived in the Philippines and China. Um, And then from 15, I moved to the US and went to high school and university. And then after a few years of that, I came back to Japan. And that's during that time period as an adult. That's when I co-directed the film Hafu. Um, and after that came out, I returned to the United States. So I've been in the Los Angeles area for a couple of years now.
Okay, thank you very much. So you have such an interesting background, moving, living in different countries, and yes, which I also resonate because I've also lived in several countries also, in 5 countries, and I'm doing the opposite of you. I'm back to Japan right now, but I live in the States for 10 years, and now I'm in Japan for the past 2 years. So it's interesting. I'm very interested in learning more about your journey. So, yes, I would be curious to know, Megumi, what have been your journey growing up as a Hafu? I suppose you speak Japanese because you lived in Japan. Yes, I would be curious to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, I attended Japanese elementary school for the first couple of years. And growing up, I lived in Chibaken, like kind of adjacent to Tokyo, close to Tokyo Disneyland. So I grew up going there at least once a year, if not more. Um, but I I think had a pretty great childhood. I didn't really have any um, ijime or bullying, but I was kind of very aware that I was different from everybody around me. And it was kind of a daily reminder, whether it was, you know, being stared at on the Tokyo subway, or the neighborhood kids when I walk by, they'd say, "Ah, gaijin da, gaijin da," or the little obachans in the neighborhood would, ask me, "Oh, like why is your Japanese so good?" So, you know, I don't have a clear, distinct memory where I realized I was half Japanese, but it just was kind of always there that, oh, I don't quite look and act and behave and like don't seem to fit into the definition of what it means to be Japanese, and that like, people were constantly questioning me in that way. Um, and so, I think that was something that has stayed with me my entire life. And then from about third grade, my parents, because we were living kind of, living and moving abroad and coming back to Japan every couple of years, and there wasn't always necessarily a Japanese school option in the places that we were moving to. My parents decided to switch me to an English international school. And so from about third grade, I started going to international school in Japan. And yeah, started suddenly was surrounded by at least half the class was other half Japanese people. And so it became very normal. And, I kind of felt like I was with my community. But I didn't realize at the time, because you're a kid and your world is so small, that like it was really a bubble.
Mm.
Um, and that bubble, I think in some ways actually makes you feel more separated from Japan, that it had like the longer term impact of that. Um, and then from about age 15, I moved to the US and went to high school and college, and moved from Japan to, we first moved to Hawaii, and then I went to college in New York. So I went to very kind of multicultural, multi-ethnic, you know, uh, areas of the United States, and um, had this like kind of stopped having to need to identify myself, explain who I am, why do I look this way? I didn't have to do that as much anymore. And it wasn't until I went back to Japan when I was in my mid-20s for graduate school that I had to like kind of reface and like come to answer this question of like, who am I? What does it mean to be Japanese? And that period then sent me on this long journey of making films and exploring these topics. So yeah.
Wow. Yes, such an interesting experience. So I'm curious to know. So you said you before third grade, so you were in a Japanese system?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
And but you didn't especially faced bullying or ijime or things like that. But I'm curious to know, did you have some time where you tried to fit in or to become Japanese or not necessarily? How was it for you?
Um, I mean, I don't think I necessarily did anything extra. I was just, being a kid in school. Um, but I do recall like one of my teachers kind of calling on me to, oh, how do you say this in English? And suddenly the whole class turned and looked at me, and I remember feeling very embarrassed, and I didn't want that attention on me. I didn't want to stand out. Um, and so I don't recall particularly doing anything to diminish that, but I definitely didn't want more attention on me than, you know, normal. So
Yes. But yeah, which makes
yeah.
sense because I think at this age when we are a kid, we don't want the attention. We just want to fit in or be like everybody else. And as you shared also after when you joined the international school, you were surrounded more with people like you, like us, like more halfway. And I had a similar experience growing up in Japan. I was always in the international school personally.
Mm.
I never experienced the Japanese system. But I could see that I was in my bubble, like you said, when I was in the school with other Hafus or other expats. But then I would go out of my bubble when I would go to my swimming lessons with only Japanese. And that's when I would see the difference. When I was outside of the bubble, I would suddenly feel different. Like, oh, people are staring at me actually. People are saying gaijin or Amerikajin or so it was a very interesting experience. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely relate to that as well.
Yes. And then at mid-20s, so you came back to Japan. So that's yes, and so that's when you started your journey also as a filmmaker. And there was something I read that I really loved about one of the interview perhaps you gave, or it was on your website when you said filmmaking is a vehicle for transformation, a powerful tool to start conversation and build community. I thought it was beautiful. What you,
Thank
yeah,
you.
what,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I went to school in New York for film studies, and then when I came back to Japan to go to graduate school, um, I was still, you know, kind of a baby filmmaker trying to figure out how to tell stories and how to film and edit and all those things. Um, and I think after probably I don't know what time I must have been close to like 3 or 4 years after coming back. Uh, that's when I actually had heard of this project called the Hafu Japanese Project.
Mm.
And it was a photography and research project started by Marsha Yumilize and Natalie Willer. Um, and they had started the project in London, and they were photographing half Japanese people and doing kind of in-depth sociological research. And they brought that project to Japan. And when I had heard about it, I think it was on Facebook that I had first learned about it. I immediately like signed up to participate. It was really exciting. And when I went, I went and got my photograph taken, and then Marcia sat down with me and I think did like a 2 hour interview, in-depth interview. Um, and it was just so exciting to see a project being made about the Hafu experience. And I then, kind of volunteered topic. And so, I said, do you need a volunteer? Do you need anything? Can we can we collaborate somehow? And that's when they introduced me to another filmmaker, Lara Perez Takagi, who was also similarly kind of getting started in her film career and also like half Japanese. She's half Spanish, and like wanting to explore this issue through filmmaking. And so together we all kind of came together and collaborated. And that's the kind of origin of how the Hafu film came to be. But as we were making the film, and to the quote that you said earlier, um, you know, I think that filmmaking um, can uplift stories and show them on the big screen. And as we screen them, people come together, and it creates a space. The film itself takes people on an emotional journey, and that journey over the 90 minutes allows people to be quiet, get reflective, feel all the feelings that they feel, and hopefully come out of it with a new understanding or some kind of transformation themselves. And then for me for a screening, we often like to do some kind of discussion afterwards where people could share. And so that's where I feel, filmmaking is very powerful, is that it brings people together, it uplifts stories, and it creates space for conversations to happen.
Yes. Definitely. I can definitely say that when I watched the movie, the documentary, I really felt all sorts of emotions. I had some tears at some times, a reflection. Yes, no, it was a very, how to say, it's an invitation for self-reflection and also inspiration. So I highly recommend. And by the way, I've put the link on my website. I have created a resources.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I've created a page called resources on Hafu, and I've put your documentary in there.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so
No,
much.
my pleasure. I like to highlight all the beautiful work that is out there and yours. And so, and I would like to hear also, so before going into how you feel today, I would like maybe since we are talking about your documentary, and I should say documentaries because there are others. So, what would you say, or maybe the biggest? I know there are maybe many discoveries, but what would you say are the main discoveries that you've encountered doing this work about how?
Mm. I mean, I definitely would say that people are craving these stories. Um, that people have a deep desire to be seen for their experiences. Um, and I think that, again, filmmaking is a way to help people be seen, even though on the screen, it might not be your personal story, but there is something magical about magnifying somebody's story on a big screen that suddenly we feel a connection to them. We see them in their daily lives. We hear kind of, what they're thinking and feeling. And um, and I think people often, and certainly when we made the film, the Hafu film more than 10 years ago, there really wasn't, you know, in the same way today, the abundance of social media where you see so many people sharing and kind of talking about their own stories. And so I think uh, I found that people really wanted to hear these stories being told. Um, and yeah, that there was just this overwhelming desire to resonate and feel like they're not alone. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm sure after producing it and I mean showing your documentary, you probably had a lot of responses, no, from many Hafus who watched the documentary.
Yeah, I mean it's incredible to hear how the film continues to be screened. It's kind of like having a child in a very short period, and then your child is now an adult and they like walk out the door, and
Yeah,
then like you don't know where they're going. So,
yeah,
it's sometimes I'll hear people like, "Oh, at my company, we did a screening of Hafu, and then we had a discussion." I was like, "Really? Wow, that's incredible." They were like, "Yeah, we wanted to talk about like, diversity in Japan." And I was like, "Wow, that's amazing." And so it's really incredible in that way. And for me, the thing that I love more than anything is that when I'm able to participate in a screening, and in particular, I've had the experience over the last couple of years of, talking at like universities,
mm,
especially in Japan, where there are many, Hafu students in the audience. And, you know, for them, watching the film is the first time that they've really had the chance to, yeah, experience their own experience, but the experience of other Hafus. And then they feel in those moments, they seem to feel like moved and empowered enough to then, stand up in front of their classmates and share their own stories for the first time. And I think that's so beautiful and moving. And I'm just constantly touched by when that happens. So that's been great.
yes. And by the way, introduce your documentary at university recently. I was giving a class to Doshisha University in Kyoto, and I was giving a talk about Hafu, being Hafu in Japan, the diversity in Japan. And before the class, my class, they watched the documentary.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So because I recommend it to watch it. So they watch it, then we had the talk, so it was even more rich because they have already watched the documentary, and then they had so many questions to me also. And I thought it was wonderful because even if the class was only Japanese, it opens a mind about, okay, how can I be more, maybe more empathetic? How can I be more welcoming to diversity in Japan? And what type of question perhaps should I avoid asking? Or so they were very curious to know all these things. So yes, as you say, your documentary is continuing this its journey
Yeah.
in places you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great. And so you're also working on another documentary, correct? Would you like to share a little bit about that too?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that people have asked over the years is, are you going to make a sequel to the Hafu documentary? Are you going to either follow up with, the participants, now that it's been, 10 plus years? Or are you going to find some new Hafu participants and make another film? And I've definitely thought about it. But in some ways, I almost feel like my message wouldn't change. And so even though I could make another film, and I think I am a better filmmaker than I was 10 years ago, um, I think I think the message would still be the same. And so in kind of my search of, what other stories I want to tell, one topic that really stuck with me in making the Hafu film, because there's so many different topics that we explored, whether it was, which language was used in your home, or what school system you attended, or, whether your father's Japanese, your mother's Japanese, like all of these different things impact, um, your identity and experience. And of all of those topics, the one that kind of kept on, nagging at me and kind of like, oh, this you need to go deeper, you need to go deeper, is the issue of citizenship and how that's tied to our identity. And I, you know, in the Hafu film, we explore this issue, but it's probably about 5 minutes maximum of an 87-minute film. And it was just one person's experience. And, there can be many other people have different experiences with their citizenship. Um, but yeah, wanted to go deeper and explore this topic. And, for myself, when I was growing up as a young child, I was told that um, Japan doesn't allow dual citizenship. When you become an adult, you must choose.
Mm.
And so I grew up kind of being fearful of that day, that one day I would have to choose, and how could I make that choice? It was so terrifying to me. It feels like being asked to, your parents are getting divorced, and you have to choose one parent or over the other. And then from the moment you make that choice, no contact with the other parent.
Mm.
That's the kind of intensity and severity that I feel this question of choosing your nationality is. And but in my own experience, currently the age of choice, when you're born with dual citizenship, is age 20. But in my own experience, I've been able to renew my Japanese passport well past the age of 20. Um, and I was always confused. Like, I thought I'm supposed to choose, but I'm still able to renew my passport. Why is that?
Mm.
why is this like conflicting and allowed and taking place? And but everybody, and I started meeting lots of people who also were able to maintain their dual citizenship status well past the age of 20. But people were very afraid of talking about um, their citizenship status. So when I decided to make a film and I started like just doing initial research and having conversations, people were willing to talk to me one on one, but they didn't want to be recorded.
Mm.
They didn't want to have a camera following them. Um, and I can completely understand it. It's confusing and it is very scary. Um, but as I started to do research, I discovered, one thing that I didn't know before was that the Nationality Act has actually 20 different articles,
Mm.
and each one has like a different circumstance of how you are Japanese and not Japanese. And one of the like two very distinct ones articles was Article 14, which applies to dual citizens by birth, which says that you citizenship. And to me, obviously, Article 11 is very severe. So anybody who has Japanese citizenship, even myself who was born with dual citizenship, if I naturalize and acquire a third nationality, I would automatically lose Japanese citizenship. And uh, my theory is that Article 11 kind of sets this kind of atmosphere of fear that kind of trickles down and creates all this other fear for everyone else who's been impacted by the Nationality Act. And for people who are born with dual citizenship, even though the Article 14 says you must make a choice, Article 16 says that if you choose, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but if you choose Japanese, you must make an effort to give up your other citizenship. And in my own experience of renewing my Japanese passport multiple times past the age of 20, I have never been asked how my effort is going. Have
Mm.
I given up my US citizenship? And so um, I think that Article 11, which says you automatically lose Japanese citizenship upon naturalizing to another citizenship, causes this fear that cascades and keeps everyone else in a state of terror. And then, as a result of this, I know this is super complicated, people are making ill-informed choices.
Yes.
People think that you have to choose, and so dual citizens by birth give up being Japanese. Oh, I just gave up. I thought I had to choose, so I stopped renewing and I didn't give up. I gave up. I'm not Japanese anymore. But they actually legally might still be Japanese. Um, People give up. They don't pass Japanese citizenship on to when they have children,
Mm.
um, even though they know, like legally, they should be able to. And so another generation gets a chance, misses out on a chance of belonging to Japan, both legally and the identity associated with having Japanese citizenship. Um, so those things are painful for me
Mm.
to hear when I hear these stories. And it's also painful that um, I think that ultimately I want to see a Japan that openly allows dual citizenship because, you know, I I want to be all of who I am,
Mm.
both Japanese and American, and all of the other things that encompasses my identity. I don't want to have to make a choice and cut off one part of myself. That's so painful. So I want to see a Japan that allows dual citizenship. And part of getting there is us who have it to kind of step out from the shadows and be less afraid. And so the film I'm making
Mm.
um, is a vehicle to start the conversations and to hopefully give inspiration and deeper understanding because there's so much misinformation and misunderstanding towards that eventual goal. And if the film I make can contribute one step closer to that,
Yeah.
that's then I will be happy. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
working on. It's very, and that's not even like I haven't even told you the story of the film yet. So that's just the kind of motivation and
Yeah.
objective of of my filmmaking. Yeah.
Yes, and it's already just sharing your motivation. It's one. I mean, I'm sure people who will listen to our interview, they will want to watch it. I want to watch it so badly now, and also, I think it will give me courage to perhaps step out of the hiding. Hiding regarding this topic a little bit. Actually, I had a conversation last night with my mom about this topic because I knew I would interview you. She said, "Shh." My mom said, "Shh."
Yeah.
No,
Yes.
they're afraid. My mom is afraid for me, and I mean it. I understand. I totally understand, and it's because perhaps. And I told her, "Do you know about these articles?" Because I sent her the articles. You sent me. You wrote an article, so I sent her about this. Do you know this article? She said, "Yes, I know, but and still, shh." She said because yeah. So that's. I think it's. I think I'm more or less like you. I'm able to renew my passport, sharing a bit about each time without any issue. And when we talk about efforts, yes, they just ask a question sometimes, but they don't necessarily ask about what effort are you doing. But like last time, I renewed it recently, 1 year ago, when I was in Kobe, and it was a bit confusing to them because my name is Tsuji, my Japanese name is Tsuji, and I have a French name, Deneuville. So I think it's written here that I'm French and Japanese, right? My name is Tsuji Deneuville. So they were saying, okay, so Deneuville is your father's name, correct? Yes. Yes. Okay, so, and they were a bit confused, like, okay, so, hmm, so we should perhaps remove the name Deneuville so on your passport, so it's clear. I said, okay, go ahead, remove it. I don't care. I mean, so I had just to sign a paper saying that I abandoned my French last name. That's it. It took me
Okay.
2 minutes, just writing a paper. So my effort is just took 2 minutes.
Mm, I see. Okay.
So it's like, okay, whatever you want me to do, I will do. I have to give up my French last name. Yes, no problem, I do it. But so that's just an example of a piece of my story. Maybe later I will share more with you. No problem.
Yeah, I think there's a big kind of like don't ask, don't tell policy,
Mm,
or like, people just don't talk about it. But in that kind of don't talk about it, people, yeah, there's just again, so like this cloud, this fog
mm,
of misinformation. And everybody's like whispering to, oh, I heard so and so did so and then they got their passport taken from them. Or, you
mm,
you know, and I actually to this day have not met somebody
mm,
who um who like had something so like, you know, aggressively done to them.
mm,
I have met people who, for example, um, you know, work for the US government or military and they come to Japan to serve. And
mm.
so in that case, they're serving one country, they are asked to make a choice.
Yeah.
But they can also make a choice to not do that job.
Mm.
I
Right.
also have heard of people who have gotten a scholarship to study in Japan. And oh, you cannot be a Japanese citizen for the scholarship because no Japanese person, it has nothing to do with dual citizenship. It's just no Japanese person can get the scholarship. So
Right.
then this person feels, oh, I cannot be Japanese to
Mm.
receive the scholarship. So I choose to give up my Japanese citizenship and I take the scholarship. But they still made a choice.
Right.
So, it's not pleasant to be into those circumstances, but I think it's not like the Japanese government is chasing people
Mm.
and trying to, cross them off. Uh,
Yes.
so,
Yes. Yes.
I think this fear just perpetuates the silence. This, let's say, the silence perpetuates the fear,
Yes. And I
and
think
then the
that
cycle continues.
and I think it's a bit hypocritical too because recently I was and I read your articles also when you were talking about for many years not wanting to rent a car with your US driver license in Japan. And recently I had the situation of creating my Japanese driver license. I had to create my Japanese driver license and I had to show my French driver license in front of the police officer. So can you imagine my fear? I'm in front of the police showing my French driver license and nothing happened. So for me, it's really hypocritical in a sense that everybody knows in a way,
Yeah,
but
yeah. And that doesn't feel good. Like,
no, you feel like
should
you're
should we feel this
yeah,
way in your own
yeah,
country?
exactly.
If
That's
we
what
are part of Japan and we belong to Japan, to me, it's unacceptable to feel like unease in my own country.
yes,
You know,
I agree. I
I
agree.
want to feel like I can be fully who I am,
Yes,
and I want everyone to feel that way. And
yes.
so that's part of my, the deep desire and using
Yeah.
filmmaking as a tool to contribute to that.
Yes. Oh, I have goosebumps just listening at you. I think yes, I fully really resonate with your mission and I encourage you 100%. I'm behind your project
Oh,
100%.
thank you.
I I want this country to become more inclusive of Hafus and others. But okay, thank you so much. So I think for maybe another question. So yes, maybe it's more going back to your identity as a half. So you shared about your experience as a child. You share about your mission right now with your documentary. And how is it now for you then today, as an adult, being half in the US now?
Yeah. Um, I mean, it's still very important. The Hafu experience is very important to me. And I, you know, still have throughout the years have met many people, who are doing projects and, you know, uh, exploring these identities and themes within their own practices and work, artistic work. And they have been it's been an incredible community. And I cherish the friendships that I've made throughout the years. Um, and for me now, I think I'm less active in those communities. But I also think like it's there's a certain kind of phase in your life where like the question of who I am, who am I, looms larger than other phases. And I really think it's like the kind of like going off to university and like kind of late 20s in that range in the 20s. If you're just really trying to understand who you are, you're trying to figure out, yeah. what you're going to do for your career and what are you going to study and all of those things. And so um, I think that's a time where people are really asking these questions about who I am and my identity and what does it mean to be Hafu and am I Japanese or not? Um, and so I think I've kind of graduated a little bit in terms of my own like questioning myself. And I think in some ways, making the film helped kind of, it was also a therapeutic process for me as a filmmaker. And, uh, um, coming out of it, I felt more confident in being all of who I am. Uh, and so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And then as you know, I've mentioned this new film on the issue of citizenship, dual citizenship in Japan is kind of taken over. So it's something that I'm like thinking about constantly,
Yes,
and continues to be something that and it has an impact on identity and
yeah,
sense of belonging as well, for sure.
definitely. And that's great that you're doing this film, even though you're in the US, but you're still highly connected to these challenges. I mean, it's not only in Japan, right? The kokuseki issues. It's you're still working on that, being away
Yeah.
from the
And
state.
I think interestingly, the issue of Japan's nationality law and having Japanese citizenship or not is actually, I think, um, impacts the Japanese who live outside of Japan more than those who live in Japan. Because if you're in Japan as a Japanese citizen, then you can act and move around. But when you're abroad, then this question of you're in this other country and you're like questioning how long do I want, is this my new home? Do I want to stay here? If you are only Japanese and you're building a life and a family, outside of Japan, you may have dual citizenship children. You may be like, oh, do I need to become citizen of this country that I'm living in now? So in some ways, this film, even though it's very much about Japan and who gets to be Japanese, it's I think a bigger question for those who are living outside Japan.
Hmm, that's interesting to know that. Yes, definitely. Okay. And so, yeah, it's interesting also to hear that so you've graduated also from, as you said, from these questions around your identity. So it almost seems like you're now more confident and wiser and and I'm wondering because I don't know, that's been my experience, but I didn't have many questions around my identity when I don't, that's my personal experience, huh? When I was in the US.
Mm.
Because to me, when you're like in the US, it was more like people accepted me for who I was, and people didn't really ask question about okay, are you half like this word doesn't exist anyway in the States. It's they didn't ask if I was mixed or anything like that, so they just ask where are you from. So I would say France, and that's why, oh, it makes sense with your accent, and that would finish here the conversation. But I feel like in Japan, when I live here in Japan, I have more these questions coming to me about my
Mm.
identity. So I don't know if it's question of age, because now I'm 40 and I have this question now because I live in Japan. So I'm wondering, maybe it's depending on people, it's depends on when in your life, but also where are you living?
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely. I think
Yes.
it's a different experience in Japan than elsewhere. And then depending also on like if you're in a big city or in the countryside, I think those all are factors that, play a role in it. So absolutely.
Yes. So, and the last question, because I know we are already, it's late in LA, but the last question, I think that's the important one. What would you like to say, Megumi, with your background, your experience, personal and professional experience now? What would you say to other mixed people who maybe, they're facing challenges around their identity, they have a lot of doubts or questions? What would you like to say to them?
Yeah. I would like to say that, you know, all those questions that they're having are perfectly valid. Um, and I think that, it's interesting because so many of when I think about when I was kind of in the thick of it myself, um, there was how I felt in my inner world, and then there was how I was treated in the outer world. And those two, there was like a big gap between the two. Um, but, I think it's important to know that it's okay to be more than one thing at the same time, that you can be both. Um, and uh, yeah, like I think the world is becoming, um, obviously more interconnected than uh, ever before. And there's like tremendous value in having kind of multicultural, multiracial, and multi-ethnic perspectives. Um, and that, I think if you can, you know, start to value and kind of step into the wholeness of all of who you are, um, I mean, that's what I hope for anybody, to know that, you are as great as you are. Um, and I think that when each of us starts to do that, we then like inevitably change the world around us. Our mere presence is already changing the world. Um, and then I think like, yeah, we just now also we have more resources, and communities available to us more than ever before. And certainly, on your website, you mentioned the resources and like part of why we made this film. The Hafu film is also for that purpose. And now there's like all these kind of online communities. So I think try to find people who have similar experiences and then kind of get offline and meet them in person and really be able to share that way is, I think, an important start of, you know, getting closer to that wholeness within.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for your wisdom. I think that's beautiful when you say, yes, you're as great as you are already. And by I think when we, as you said, when we accept ourselves for our wholeness, in our wholeness, then we also give permission to others
Mhm.
to accept themselves as they are and to step out from the shadow. And I'm sure your documentary, your second documentary, will also allow that for people to step out from the shadow and dare to say who they are and dare to accept their dual citizenship. And so thank you so much, Megumi, for your time. I will put on the website also different resources that you want to share. Feel free to let me know. When your documentary is ready, definitely let me know so I can
Okay, yes,
spread the
absolutely.
word. So I can spread the word. Do you know approximately when you're target?
Um, I think it will take me another year to finish the film.
Okay.
I've filmed probably like 70-80% of it and need to get into editing. And then, it's just a time consuming. Once the film is done, then I will be submitting it to film festivals and that kind of thing. And so then there's always like, a 4 months or more time lag between like submission and like it actually, being selected and being shown. So yeah, hopefully sometime next year, but it might be even longer than that. It's a slow process filmmaking is.
I imagine it's a huge work with a lot of process. So yeah, I'm waiting for it impatiently, and I hope you come to Japan. And when you do the film festival in Japan, I would love to attend and
Yes, yes, I definitely will plan. I would like to do like a screening tour
mm.
in Japan and have many conversations on this topic. So
That would be great. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to it. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Do you have a final word for our
Oh
community?
gosh, a final word. I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm out of words for today. But thank you for the conversation. It was really wonderful, and yeah, I hope if people haven't had a chance to watch Hafu, please, we have it online at hafufilm.com. And yeah, if you're interested in the film on the Kokuseki whole, I've started like a Substack, which you can follow.
Mm.
I'll, share my research as well as like the behind the scenes of my filmmaking journey as well there. Or I also have an Instagram, so if you
Okay.
can follow me there, that would be amazing. But
Yes,
yeah, thank you.
definitely. I will share all the links in my on my website, definitely. So thank you so much, Megumi. I wish you a great night. I know it's late over there, and thank you again for being here.
Yeah, no
Thank you.
problem. Bye.
Bye.